What's up, Kings of War fans? And here we've got 2,000 points of Basilea. So working from right to left, then we have a horde of men-at-arms with healing brew. Behind them we have two hordes of Alohi. One of them has Blessing of the Gods for elite, and the other has Blood of the Old King. At the back here we have a regiment of Paladin Knights. These guys have Brew of Strength, so they're crushing one Thunderous 2. Then we have just a troop of Paladin Knights. These guys are totally naked. Coming towards the front then, we have two regiments of Paladin Knights on foot. The one on the left has the Crushing Strength, so they drop their defense to 4, but the one on the right have defense 5. These guys also have Brew of Courage. And then character-wise, we have one Alohi. We have one Bearer of the Holy Icon. That guy's got Banner of the Griffin. And then we have a War Wizard with Soul Drain, and then this guy is the Priest, and he has the Shroud of the Saints, so he actually got Heal 5, and he also has Bane Chant. And there we go, that makes up 2,000 points of Basilea. Okay, and we have 2,000 points of the Brotherhood. Talk us to this, Dan, what you got?
Order of the Brotherhood on foot, regiment, naked.
Okay.
Troop of Martyrs, naked. Horde of Martyrs with Brew of Sharpness. Then Regiment of Recogniteers, naked. Then we have Order of the Abyssal Hunt Regiment.
Oh, sorry, these guys, the Abyssal Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay, these two.
And then we have two units of the Order of the Brotherhood. One's got Pushing of the Caterpillar, the other one's got Healing Brew.
Nice, okay.
Then Forsaken Beasts here with Ensnare.
Bear with Ensnare.
And then we got two Devoted. One has Heal 4 Shroud of the Strength, bringing it up to Heal 6.
Okay.
The other one has Inspiring and the Spell Weakness. Then we just have an Adjutant with Loot of Insatiable Darkness. And then finally, Horde of Forsaken with Brew of Strength for extra crushing.
Nice, okay, and that makes up 2,000 points of the Brotherhood. And we have Roll for Scenario, and we are playing Occupy. What's up, Kings of War fans? Utterly Spineless here, bringing you another Kings of War battle report. Hope you're doing good. And today we've got 2,000 points of Basilea versus Brotherhood. Two nice lists here. Lots of flyers, lots of cavalry, particularly from the Brotherhood. They've got 4 regiments of cavalry, so quite mobile lists. And the Occupy scenario, I think, is quite good for mobile armies because you need to get around the board. So Occupy is 3 objective markers go within 6 inches of the center line. You can see the black one there, there, and there. They are worth 1 point and can be captured by both sides. And then you have 2 objective markers that go in your opponent's half. So that is the Brotherhood's one, and that is the Basilea one, and they are worth 2 points, but they can't be you can't score your own one. So for example, that one is worth 2 points for me, but if I hold that one, it's worth nothing. So I've just got to defend that one, but try and capture that one. So this is the board after deployment. So I think what the Brotherhood are trying to do here is they know they can't score 2 points from this one, so they've literally just deployed on the right hand side. There we go, sorry about that. So they've just deployed on the right hand side, so they're really going for this one, and they're going for these two here. And I've deployed pretty much equally across the front, really, so kind of spaced my army out. I had less drops here, so I kind of played it safe and just spread out nice and easy with my horde in the middle, and hopefully I'm going to make use of that difficult terrain. So yeah, that's the board after deployment, and Basilea rolled and got first turn. So let's go on to first turn. Oh, sorry, that's the board from the Brotherhood half. That's what deployment's looking like for them. You can see they've gone for the whole flank denial thing. So Basilea first turn then, and just an advance at the board really. Nothing too major going on. Staying out of charge ranges on the left-hand flank. Putting my Alohi in the woods there because if they do get charged by the flyers, they're going to be hindered, so they're okay there. And then going up much further on the right-hand side because he hasn't got anything that's capable of charging him there. So yeah, so that's what it's looking like on the right-hand flank. They're just closing around like that. And no shooting in this list at all, apart from some quite short-range fireballs from that wizard there. So that is it for the Basilea turn 1. Brotherhood's first turn then, and immediately some charges are declared on that left flank, as you can see. So I'm immediately realising my first mistake of the game. I just assumed that both those units of knights were speed 8, but no, those recon ITers, whatever they're called, they're actually speed 9. So yeah, so I dropped the ball there straight away. First mistake of the new year. I left my Uralohi in range. I knew my my troop of knights were in range for his horde of Forsaken there, but I was like, well, if he takes the charge, then I'm okay with that because I can set up a counter charge on his only unit of flying. So I knew they were in range, but yeah, that was just a mistake. So hopefully I don't pay too much of a price for that. And then, as you can see, just a general advance at the middle there from the Brotherhood. These units being held up by that difficult terrain, but the Horde of Martyrs coming straight up. And then the units on what would be their left flank have turned outwards to face the Uralohi and the Paladin Cavalry. So, yeah, that's what the charges are looking like on the the Brotherhood's right-hand flank, and then onto combat. Luckily enough, the Reconiters only put 5 wounds onto the Uralohi. They got Thunderous too. That could have been a lot worse if he'd had some decent rolling. 5 wounds isn't bad, but still he needs a 10 re-rolling, and he doesn't get it. So I've kind of got away with that a little bit, I think. And then the Horde of Forsaken, they've got Brew of Strength as well, so they're wounding on 2s. Needless to say, they blew through that troop of Paladin Knights. So first blood goes to the Brotherhood, and he had a bit of a choice to make here when deciding whether to reform this Horde of Forsaken. Obviously, he could reform them facing that way towards the Alohi and then get the rear charge from this guy. So he really didn't know what to do. So he decided to advance and just try and get out of line of sight from these guys. But unfortunately, he rolled a 2 and he is not out of line of sight. So they are pretty vulnerable for the next turn. And yeah, that is the end of the Brotherhood turn 1. Basilea turn 2 then, and the Horde of Alohi have taken a flank charge onto that Horde of Forsaken, and the Uralohi has countercharged into the front of the Reconiters. I could have got a flank charge off there again, but I think that should be enough. I've moved my Bearer of the Holy Icon into the middle of the woods here, so that he's in range of both these 2 units if that Horde of Alohi get countercharged, so we can provide some rallying. Other than that, I've moved the Horde backwards. I don't really want to go further up. I wasn't in charge range, and I'd rather the combats happen towards this side of the board rather than that side of the board, so I've moved them back. And then I've moved up on the flanks on the right-hand side. That hill was blocking line of sight, unfortunately, so I couldn't get any charges off. So my the regiment of knights have just moved up onto the hill. And then the Horde of Alohi have just gone over to the other side of the hill, just so basically, hopefully, they can get off some charges next turn. And that's all I can do in the mover phase. Combats then, I get quite lucky here because I roll really badly with my Horde of Alohi. Despite that being a flank charge, I only put 12 wounds on that Horde of Forsaken, which is really bad. It's well below average, but I do get the 6. Because they would have been in a world of trouble if I hadn't managed to rout that unit there. I don't use my Blood of the Old King, and really I should have, so I kind of got away with that again. So they are routed, and then the Uralohi puts 3 wounds on the that regiment of Reconiters, and you know, that's not enough to pop them, so that's all there is for the combat. That's what they're looking like after the reform. And that is the end of Basilea turn 2. Brotherhood turn 2, and this is what the board's looking at after charges. The Reconiters have gone back into that Uralohi. The Knights of the Brotherhood there have gone into the front of the Horde of Alohi, obviously. And then the in the middle of the board, he's just advanced up as far as he can, I guess, with that terrain bogging these 2 units down there. He hasn't elected to move his horde up and expose them on their own, so they've kind of moved up all in a line. These 2 units here, the Forsaken Beast and then this unit of Knights there, they have moved backwards out of charge range, so they were about here, so they've basically just, you know, they've just kept out of charge range from these 2 units there. And that is about it movement-wise. Let's go on. In the shooting phase, he's got that caster there sitting behind that unit, and she's cast weakness onto this regiment of paladins, so they will be -1 to wound next turn. And oh yeah, and another thing, this guy failed his Bane chant on the Knights as well in the shooting phase, which was quite key. That was a little disappointing. So the Reconiters, they only put, I think, 1 wound onto that Uralohi, and they can't break him, so they bounce back. And then, though, yeah, this guy failed his Bane chant onto those, which kind of sucked, because that would have been really nice. He would have been wounding them on 2s, wouldn't it? Yeah, because it's Thunderous 2. So only 7 wounds go onto the Horde of Alohi, and that's not enough to break them. So they just bounce back. And that is the end of turn 3. So no casualties for the Brotherhood there, bit of a disappointing turn. So the Alohi has gone back into the Reconiters on that combat on the left-hand flank. The Alohi Horde have gone and counter-charged back in as well. And then the 2 fresh charges is the Horde of Men-at-Arms there. They have charged into the front of the Horde of Martyrs, and so have the Regiment of Paladins, and the way they had to share frontage meant that luckily the Regiment of Paladins didn't have to clip that bit of difficult terrain, so that charge isn't hindered. And the Horde of Men-at-Arms have also been Bane chanted, so lots of attacks and some crushing strength going into that Horde of Martyrs. Hopefully I can heavily wound that unit of Martyrs, because they are just a massive tar pit. And then just on the right hand flank, I elect not to put the charge here, because, you know, it would be hindered, and these guys are -1 to wound anyway, so kind of like charging him was literally pointless here. So I just moved them up into a way that I'm out of line of sight from this unit. So, and then this unit not being in range of anything because he moved back last turn, they just move up onto the hill, and then the regiment of Knights here are nicely placed on the 2 objectives, and the Horde of Alohi have moved up as well. Yep, so that's what the right-hand flank is looking like. And then on to combats then. The Uralohi, he does alright here. He gets some extra runes. I think he puts 3 more runes on the Regiment of Reconiters, and luckily rolls an 8 on the nerve check, and these guys are out of inspiring range, so he routs them. So that's pretty good, actually, because I didn't want him further bogged down in that annoying combat, so the fact that they're routed is a massive bonus. Then the Horde of Alohi, these guys have Elite, don't forget, so although they lose their Thunderous, they are still crushing 1, and they managed to put 7 wounds onto that Regiment of Knights, which is pretty damn good considering they were disordered. I'll definitely take that. It's not enough to rout them, but 7 is a pretty good start. The combat in the middle does not go that well, though, despite having like tons of attacks and a Bane chant onto that Horde as well. I only put 11 wounds onto the Martyrs, which is pretty crap rolling. And obviously these guys being fearless and 24, I think, by the time they've got all their valiant rallying. I think they're fearless 24. Yeah, that's not enough to even touch them. It's a good start, but it's nowhere near enough. And yeah, so with the 3 wounds onto this unit there, that was from Soul Drain from the Wizard, because he didn't unfortunately have a line of sight onto the Horde, but he did have a line of sight onto these guys, so I had to Soul Drain these guys. So that's where that 3 wounds is from. And that is the end of Basilea turn 3. So only the 1 unit of Knights routed there, and these 2 units heavily wounded, but, you know, it's a little bit of a slugfest, this one. So that is the end of the Basilea turn 3. Brotherhood 3rd turn then, and this is what it's looking like. So some charges have been declared. The Knights on the left have obviously counter-charged back into the Alohi. The Horde of Martyrs have gone into the front of the Men-at-Arms Horde, and the Knights have managed to find some room to get a charge off into the front of the Paladins on foot, and also the Knights on foot have got a flank charge onto them. So those guys are in a bit of a world of trouble, but one thing that's going for them is that both of those charges are hindered because they've gone through difficult terrain. So let's see if they can hold up. The little troop of Martyrs there, they've declared the charge, but again, that is hindered. And then on the right-hand flank, the Forsaken Beast there with Ensnare, he's just decided to go right up into the front of the Knights, and then those Knights have just parked themselves in front of the Alohi. These 2 aren't charges, but, you know, he's just decided to park them in front and kind of just, I don't know, keep them away from these units, I guess, which is probably the best thing to do. And then in the combat phase, the the little guy with Loot of Insatiable Darkness right there does get his Bane chant off onto these knights this turn, and they roll absolutely out of the box. They actually managed to put more wounds this turn than they did last turn, and they rout that Horde of Alohi. So that's really good. Despite losing their Thunderous, managing to get a ton of wounds onto them and routing them is awesome for the Brotherhood. In the middle then, not so great. 6 wounds went onto the Horde of Men-at-Arms, and then they Iron Resolved one back, and 2 wounds went onto this unit. Sorry, 3, but 1 was Iron Resolved back. So yeah, a knight charge in the front and a flank charge from a regiment of knights on foot, and all they did between them was 3 wounds, which is just, you know, -1 to hit and no Thunderous. Yeah, that really sucked. Absolutely, hardly put a dent in them. So that's kind of like a bit of a static combat, and then 2 wounds onto this regiment of Paladins, and then 1 of them comes back. And that is what the board is looking like at the end of the Brotherhood turn 3. So hardly any results went their way there. This hindered combat really costing them. But I think the main one they got is definitely that routing that Horde of Alohi. They really needed that. So that's what the board is looking like at the end of Brotherhood turn 3. So Basilea turn 4, and again lots of charges. So the Alohi on the left hand flank, instead of just charging into the front of the knights, I decided to just pop him over the top. My thoughts there is that yeah, he could put some wounds on them, but it's unlikely he's going to rout them, and he's heavily wounded himself, so he'd probably just die in the counter charge. So I tried to maybe work something out else with him. So maybe looking to get a flank charge on that Horde of Martyrs, or maybe even the Knights if you can draw line of sight. So my Horde of Men-at-Arms, they've gone back into the front of the Horde of Martyrs, and my regiment of Paladin Knights on foot. Now this is an interesting one. I've decided to countercharge the other regiment on foot, because if I countercharge those Knights, yes, I might be able to put a wound on them and strip their Thunderous, making them disordered. But if I don't charge them, then when they charge me next turn, it's a hindered charge, because counter charges are never hindered. So if I charge them, I would strip their Thunderous, but they wouldn't be hindered next turn. So if I don't charge them, next turn they'd be -1 to hit and lose their Thunderous. So I'm better off not charging the Knights, which is kind of really silly. It's just how the rules worked out, I suppose. So I go into these guys, and I cast Soul Drain on these guys with my Wiz, and then the 2 wounds that are on the Paladin Knights are healed back, so they now have survived that last turn without a single wound onto them. These Paladins here go into the front of the Martyrs, and then obviously these 2 charges are made on the right hand flank. Let's see how the charges get on. So yeah, that's just showing the healing went down. I rolled really poor to heal with my priest there, and I got 1 wound back onto that Horde, which isn't that great. Combat wise then, yeah, the Men-at-Arms Horde don't do that well. They put 4 wounds, I think, onto that Horde of Martyrs. They didn't manage to regen anything last turn, luckily, but that now they're up to 15, and it's still not enough. I elected to heal instead of Bane Chant, and I probably should have Bane Chanted instead. So that combat's still a bit of a stalemate. But this combat actually went really well with the Soul Drain and getting some decent rolls from these Paladins, because they don't have any crushing strength, so they're still wounding on 5, and I get these guys up to 8 wounds, and I waver them, which is, you know, it's a bit of a bonus. They are headstrong, but, you know, I'll take that over anything. Sorry, the combat on the right here, that's just a bit of a disaster. I roll absolutely rubbish with those Paladins, despite the ones having crushing strength, and I barely scratched those Mars. I think I put about 3 wounds on them, so that's really poor. And then the combats here, the Knights put 8 wounds onto the Forsaken Beast with their snare, which is pretty damn decent. These guys have crushing strength as well, so I was wounding on 2s, but, you know, obviously that ensnare being hitting on 4s, which isn't great. 8 wounds is good. Yeah, that's the combat with the Paladin Knights. Yeah, 3 wounds. That's really rubbish. And the Alohi on the right hand flank, these are the ones with elite. They just absolutely blow through that unit tonight in a 1 out. They don't do 20 wounds, obviously, but that dice just meant lots. I think they did something like 14 wounds. I just rolled incredibly well. And yeah, just those Knights were toast. Absolutely gone in a 1. Yeah, so that is what the board is looking like at the end of Basilea turn 4. So a pretty decent turn there. Healed a few wounds back and managed to rout an entire unit of Knights in 1 round of combat. So yeah, not bad there. I'll take that. Let's see what happens in Brotherhood turn 4. Brotherhood turn 4 then, and let's see what they can do. So the Forsaken Beast then within Snare, he charges back into the front of Paladin Knights, but doesn't do that well. He only manages to put 1 wound on them, so not a great start there. The little troop of Martyrs though, they do really well. They put 3 wounds on that regiment of Paladins, so that's not bad at all. Managing to put more wounds on them than they did, than they took, despite being a lot less in points. Yeah, so that's just a view of the board overall. On the left-hand side, those knights have just pivoted there. And then the knights have gone back in. And yeah, these knights did not do well with that charge being hindered. Basically, it was a toss-up whether the Bane chant went onto the knights or went onto the Horde of Martyrs. And he elected to put onto the Horde of Martyrs. So the knights were hitting on 4s and wounded on 5s. And I thought they'd do better just on sheer number of attacks. But no, they only managed to do 5 wounds. And those paladins can just absolutely shrug that off. That's not too bad. And those guys, in the meantime, fail their headstrong roll, so they just literally nudge back like 2 or 3 inches, and that's all they can do. But the Horde of Martyrs do really well, making really good use of that Bane chant. Putting 12 wounds on that horde of men-at-arms and putting them up to 16 wounds, although not enough to rout them. That is a hefty chunk of wounds from that horde. And not only that, they do all that while regenning 5 wounds themselves on their regen. I'm a massive fan of these martyrs in the Brotherhood army. I just think they're really good. The fact that they're fearless, the fact that they can get the rallying from the Valiant special rule, the fact that they also have regen on a 6+. It means when you field them in hordes, when they're rolling 15, 16 dice to regen, and they're getting like 5 or 6 wounds, it's just so effective. It's really good. So yeah, that unit having a very successful turn. But unfortunately nothing getting routed, so although some decent dice were rolled, it was just it was just pretty bad turn for the Brotherhood there, and that is what the board is looking like at the end of the Brotherhood turn 4. Basilea turn 5 then, and the Ur-Alohi on the left has gone into the flank of that Horde of Martyrs, and my Horde have gone into their front, so between them they should be able to put some damage on them and get them off the board. My Paladins have again decided to go into the front of his knights because they are heavily wounded, and hopefully I can finish them off if I roll quite well. A counter charge here again, that now I fluffed last turn, but I should be able to get them gone this turn. And then on the right hand side, the Alohi have gone into that Forsaken Beast. Now he should be toast because he doesn't get his ensnare from a flank charge, so let's see how we get on. Yeah, he was heavily wounded anyway, so we just decided to double one this. I'm not sure how many wounds they would have put on it, but he doesn't stick around because he's not on Inspiring Rune range. And move forward my Alohi, but the reason I'm playing so conservative on this flank is because the objective marker there is worth 2 points for me, and this is worth 1 point. Now the way the spacing between the objectives is work out is if I put my knights in the middle, the knights can score them both at the same time because they can be within 3 inches of both of them. So I'm literally going to leave my knights there, get 3 points, and I have no intention of moving them for the rest of the game. So as long as I can deny the Brotherhood at least 3 points there, I should be okay. So that's my strategy anyway. That's what I've been doing on this right flank, like messing around with 2 of my most expensive units. Yeah, but unfortunately my Paladins, Paladin regiment here, again, just totally fluff. They put them up to 9 wounds, and I roll like a 3. I roll a 3 on the nerve, and these guys have the rallying from that unit there and that unit there, so they're actually fearless 13. So yes, I'm getting held up by an 80-point unit of chaff here with my regiment of Paladins, and again, just showing how good these Valiant, or these Martyrs are. Fearless 13 for 80 points is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, and then on this combat here, I realised in these photos I messed up the wound counter. I must have tipped this wound counter when I charged them, because they were on 4 wounds, and for some reason when I charged them they ended up on 6. So with the soul drain that puts them down to 5. Yeah, so I've accidentally put 2 wounds in my own unit then. And they do 3 wounds in total between the soul drain from this guy and the combats from these guys, and they put them up to 11, which isn't actually that good, but I do get a good nerve roll, and they are routed. So that's a bonus, because I needed good dice to rout them. And yes, between them, the Ur-Alohi and the Horde do manage to get this Horde of Martyrs up to like 21 wounds. So again, it wasn't guaranteed. And yeah, I do manage to rout them. So Yeah, that's just a nice little side angle, and this is what the board is looking like at the end of Basilea turn. So it's still all to play for here in turn 5. The Brotherhood basically need to get this 2 points, and they need to at least contest that one. But this unit of knights have got a tough decision to make. There's a little objective marker there, so they can park on it and score a point. But they do have Pathfinder, so they can make their way through this woods to try and score that one for 2. So it's although they've got a lot of stuff routed, it's still all to play for by the Brotherhood here. Let's see how they get on in their turn 5. Brotherhood turn 5 then, and these are the charges declared. Bang, so 2 full charges by these knights. So that unit of knights on the left, they've gone into the front of that Uralohai, and this units of knights in the middle have gone into the flank of that horde of men-at-arms. So again, this charge is hindered because of that piece of terrain. So really the Pathfinder should have been on these knights and not these ones. But anyway, that's it. Let's see how they get on in combat. So, yeah, I forgot to mention this. This bird here has been healing up these knights like quite consistently, so they've dropped down onto 1 wound. And yeah, that Uralohai is routed, to say the least. He can't take a full frontal charge by the knights, so those guys have routed him and pivoted to face the middle, and these knights put this horde of men-at-arms up to 28 wounds because they do get Bane chanted, so despite being hindered, they're wounding on 3s. And yeah, 28 wounds, that is a lot, and they are routed. So that is what the board is looking like at the end of the Brotherhood turn 3. This combat just being a bit of a stalemate. That little troop of martyrs can't put any wounds onto this Paladin Knights, but they are holding them there. That's the important thing. So this unit is turned to face that objective, obviously, and this unit is turned to face that objective in the middle. So still a potential to get some decent points out of this game for the Brotherhood. Basilea turn 6 then, and potentially the last turn of the game, so I do need to start thinking about objectives here. So this is what my movement is looking like at the end of my phase. Like, I've managed to maneuver these knights in position where they are scoring both those objectives, so I got guaranteed 3 points there that can't be taken away from me. My horde of a low high five right over the top because I want to contest this one or at least stop him from scoring it. I can't manage to get within 3 inches of it, but what I can do is move my priest up and just individual chaff block his knights on the left hand side, so that's what I've done there. The regiment of paladins here, they charge into the front of those knights. It's a hindered charge because it goes through the difficult terrain, and all I really need to do is 1 wound on them to strip their thunderous, and if I do that, there's literally almost no chance they can break me in the following combat phase. So onto the combats then, and yeah, finally this little this little pesky troop of martyrs, I managed to rout them, so they've literally 80 points has held me up pretty much all game, so they've done well, good on them. And I get two wounds from my soul drain on the wizard, but that doesn't matter because that won't disorder them, and I am hitting on 4s here, wounding on 5s, but I still managed to get 1 wound on these guys to strip their thunderous, luckily. So yeah, so those guys are sitting on 3 wounds, and I bounce back, and those guys regen the 2 wounds from soul drain. So that was really touch and go, because I think if I hadn't stripped their thunderous, they definitely had the potential to blow through these paladins here and then park themselves onto that objective marker for a point here. So that was quite a big roll, and luckily I got that wound. So Brotherhood turns 6 then, and he gets a Bane chant off onto these knights, so they do manage to put 3 wounds onto that regiment of Brotherhood, but unfortunately it isn't enough to rout them and overrun onto the objective. So that 1 wound I got last combat was huge, because I think he probably would have broken them if not, and then overrun onto the objective for some points. But unfortunately it wasn't to be, and needless to say, the unit of knights on the left hand side, they smashed through that priest, but unfortunately again he only rolled a 1 for the overrun, so it didn't get him anywhere near where he wanted to be. And we roll for another turn and we don't get it. So that is what the board is looking like at the end of the game, and it is 2, 3, 4 points for Basilea and no points for the Brotherhood. But the game, although it was 4-0, the game was actually a lot closer than that, because the Brotherhood were definitely positioned to score 2 points from that one and 1 point from that one at the end of the game, so they could have tied it up 3-3. But it just wasn't to be, unfortunately. So it's a Basilea victory. So there you go, guys, another King's War battle report for you. I hope you enjoyed that one. Turned into a little bit of a slugfest in the middle, to be honest, because that difficult terrain was just hindering so many charges, and two very defensive-based armies were like, lots of defense 5 stuff, but not many wounds being able to put down, so not any awesome routing. It was a good game though. I don't think it was any crazy dice rolls that really swung the game. There was no real double ones. I think the dice were fair on pretty much both sides. So I just wanted to point out one little thing on deployment on the Brotherhood side then. Imagine what a different game it would have been if this unit of knights in the middle had a Pathfinder instead of this unit. Because this unit didn't really make use of it at all, but if all those charges in the middle hadn't been hindered, then no doubt the Brotherhood would have literally smashed through the centre line of the Basilea and started clearing up. So literally, it probably would have been a totally different game if it wasn't for that. Just something to bear in mind when you're deploying, guys. Your Pathfinder is very expensive. It's also very good, and it makes your knights extremely good. So keep an eye out for bits of terrain that are obviously going to play a part in the game, such as that bit of difficult terrain right in the middle of the board. Yeah, but other than that, I really like this this Brotherhood list, and 4 regiments of cavalry. It's pretty cool. And just a slight little spoiler for you guys, with the new release of Clash of Kings 2018, which is coming out on the 22nd of January. Well, that's when it's going to start shipping anyway. Units of these cavalry are going to be slightly helped out with Thunderous Charge, because at the moment Hinder charging is just absolutely crippling in the game. So I've pretty much had the lowdown on what's going to happen. Little spoiler, they've tweaked that to make it a little bit better. So, yeah, other than that, then, really good game. And like I said, with the new Clash of Kings coming out in a couple of days, I'll be looking forward to playing some Kings of War. And just with the new changes and stuff, lots of stuff being tweaked, and I'm quite excited about it. MVPs for the game, I'm going to give it to the Martyrs, both the Horde and the Little Troop of Martyrs, because these guys did really well. Like I said, Fearless 13 on these guys for 80 points is just ridiculous. And this Horde with Brewer's Sharpness, not able to take a massive pasting. Like, I think I probably put like 25 wounds on those guys by the time they kept regenning and getting healed and little stuff like that. But not only that, they were able to put out a fair few wounds themselves, so they did really well in keeping the centre line of the Brotherhood really strong. So there we go, those are my MVPs. I hope you enjoyed that game, guys, and I will catch you on the next one.